words are easy to understand and easy to perform, yet no one under heaven knows them or practices them. My words have ancient beginnings. My actions are disciplined. Because men do not understand, they have no knowledge of me. Those that know me are few. Those that abuse me are honored. Therefore, the sage wears rough clothing and holds the jewel in his heart.
When entering into an authentic practice, one has to remember that the mind, it has become a barrier, not a bridge. Knowledge is a barrier and not a bridge. Our minds are so full of themselves, always thinking about how great they are. We admire our thoughts more than we would ever choose to really recognize. And the reason we do is because we have no sense of humility. That's why life comes along every so often and humiliates us. It isn't to bring you down to make you feel bad about yourself, but to bring you into a place where oftentimes we will find the meaning of ourselves and how we have used our minds. The mind is a wonderful thing when attached to the heart. And you must understand, the everyday mind cannot know the heart. That is the real dilemma of our life. Most of the time we are living our life trying to find the meaning of our life upon the existence of our thoughts that have nothing to do with the ability to understand the nature of the heart. What is your heart? How do you understand it? Listen to Lao-tzu. He says, my words are easy to understand and to perform, yet no one under heaven knows them nor practices them. Why? Because things that are simple, things that are truly beautiful are simple. And we are always looking for that which gives us the upper hand, that makes us believe that we are more than what we think of ourselves as being. The mind has made a thought of you. Imagine that. Your mind has actually made a thought of you. And your whole life has been about either proving that thought or trying to make that thought not so real. And that's why the mind is a barrier and not a bridge. We don't look at our mind for what it truly is. We don't develop no mind. We don't develop the emptiness of mind. So what is Lao-tzu saying when he says, my words are easy to understand and easy to perform? It has to do with simplicity. How simple can I get? The more simple I am, the more I will understand the nature of life. Life is not here to be a matter of performance. It's a matter here of being awareness. If we learn how to understand the nature of the Tao, we understand its language is simplicity. Nothing more, nothing less, just remaining simple. I don't need any more than that. My mind is complex. It is always taking things and turning them around and going upside down and inside out, making my life very difficult. But when I choose no longer to live by that, what do I have? Lao-tzu says, I have that which lives under heaven and earth, and anyone can practice it, but no one does. Why? Why wouldn't I do that? Here is the secret to the mind, something that people don't want to acknowledge. The mind is complex and it is always creating friction. That friction is always creating pain and sorrow. And whether we know it or not, we love the pain, we love the sorrow. That way we know how to identify with ourselves. We have created ourselves in the image and in the likeness of a mind that is always fighting against itself and making elements fight against themselves. I'm always at war with some part of me. You don't like the way you look. You don't like how old you are. You don't like the color of your eyes. You don't care for the color of your hair. You don't like where you live. You don't like what people think of you. You do like what people think of you. Even in the liking, there is contradiction. All of this removes me from the nature of my simplicity. Yes, anyone can practice the Tao. Anyone. It is because it is simple. But to become simple, that is a process. That is something that most people just simply will not do. Because to become simple means I must yield. I must surrender certain elements of my life that I don't feel like I want to let go of because my mind has said they are essential to your personality, to your ego. We are always here trying to flatter our ego, and we are compromised spiritually by it, but we live to flatter it. We live to embrace it. We live to make it real. And when my ego is the only thing that is important to me in my life, I've lost my living. I have watched people for years struggle with their spiritual practice, trying to make the ego spiritual. How do you make an ego spiritual? You have to fill it with all sorts of ideas and beliefs and counter-beliefs. You have to fill it with thoughts that it can think, thoughts that it thinks will make it better than, thoughts that make it think that it is achieving something. And because I live like that, because my whole life is revolving around that, and because I assume everyone else is doing that, I'm in a subtle competition. And in that competition, I grind away at my life, tearing my life apart, not allowing me to experience the beauty of what really lives within, which is called the heart. There's so much to the three treasures of the Tao, and I'm sure you didn't get everything that I offered here. So I go into the studio and I make very, very important CDs for you. They have all of the discourses I've offered to you here on TV, but also much more in depth. And I think you'll find them very beautiful and very meaningful. If the Tao is to your heart's content, which it is, I think you'll want to order these right away. Go to my website at aspire.org and order yours today. Now back to Aspire. You see, with any authentic spiritual teaching from a Buddha, Jesus, Lao-tzu, you have to understand that the state of mind to understand it is something we call innocence. This innocence is the part of us that is not at play, trying to understand through logic and reasoning. My logic and my reasoning are very cunning. If I am not careful, that cunningness can lead me to believe many different things about any given teaching that might be given to me. This is why Jesus said that only children enter into the kingdom of heaven. He was saying they live in wonder. They are not fighting. They believe everything. They trust. They have what is known of as that thing called faith. They just trust. But we don't think in wonder. We think in what I can get. It's a cunningness on my part. What do I get for any given thing I do? What's in it for me kind of thinking. And that makes it impossible to understand the Tao. It makes it impossible for you to understand Jesus or Buddha. How would you understand them? They are not talking the language we are talking about. They are not talking about getting something. They're talking about letting go. If you really listen to what they have to say, it is only one message: to let go. Listen to Lao-tzu. He says, my words have ancient beginnings. My actions are disciplined. Can we say the same about ourselves? My words have ancient beginnings. They have been around long before humankind ever touched the earth. And his actions, they are disciplined. What does that mean? To want what's happening now is what it means. Discipline is just not doing those things that hurt you. Discipline is when you can accept things just as they are. But if my mind is wandering around, trying to get what it wants and doing the act of being very cunning, then I lose everything that is meaningful in my life. Now my thoughts are pointed. They have only one ear and they can only hear that message. Lao-tzu is saying, my actions are disciplined. I am not falling for that. I'm not living my life for the idea of achieving something better than what I came here with. I am living naturally. I'm living illogically. I'm living in wonder. My thoughts are not wandering around trying to get what's good for me. Rather, I'm aware of my karma. I'm aware of the bigger picture. I see why I am here, and I live simple. We're not here to have everything we want. People believe that if you're doing the right thing, you get everything you want. That is not true. Have you ever thought that getting everything you want has gotten you right to where you are and everything turns? Pretty soon, all of those things that you thought you wanted when you were young have turned on you. Your youth is gone. Your beauty is gone. You start looking at what you have. Your energy, your vigor is gone. And now what are you? What has changed in your life, your point of view, based on the whole idea of what your body energy is all about, rather than the inner perspective of your heart? The Tao is about the heart. It is not about the head. And every living master, from Buddha to Jesus to Lao-tzu, is only here to teach us about love, but not from words. Their actions are disciplined. They live in a certain discipline that most people find annoying. They don't analyze everything they do. They realize everything they do. They don't do things because it gets them what they want. They don't do things because somehow other people will admire them. They are an example to us of what lives in the heart as the heart. They're an example of love and the simplicity of it. The psychology of a person who is in an authentic practice, learning to understand the nature of the Tao, is not captivated by their questions and not looking for answers. They are just simply listening. They are simply watching. They are simply living. And everything comes together in a moment for them. They are disciplined. They are not living for the things that make their bodies comfortable, but for those things they can take with them through death. And I say this over and over and over to you. The most valuable things in life are only the things that you can take with you through death. So when you look at the things that you value as a person, when you look at your life and the meaning of it, what are you doing? Your pride, your vanity, what other people think of you, these things fall away very quickly at the end of life. Trust me, they do. I have seen many people leave their body fighting those things, wanting to believe that they were valuable. And there is no greater hell that a person falls into than trying to convince themselves of values that are not really valuable and trying to make them appear valuable, especially at the end of their life. They die delusional, afraid, and lost. And that is a great tragedy in this life. There comes a time in everybody's life where they feel like they really need a change in their living. I offer you 3 retreats every year at Mount Madonna that are very intense, simple, yet very effective. They include meditation, Gestalt therapy, some insight work. Come to the website at aspire.org and take a look at retreats. In the land where Lao-tzu lived in China, he was not really well celebrated, nor was he really well known. But one of the things that was very interesting was how his disciples, his students, looked at him. They revered him. The lore has it that he ran away from his students, tried to get away. He didn't want to be teaching anymore. He had had enough of their questions, enough of the students' mishigas, as it were. And so he was willing to let it all go. One of his students ran behind him, found him before he entered the mountains, and begged him to give the Tao-te, which he did. And the interesting part of it all is that no one really hears the Tao. Nobody ever really listens to it, even now. Listen to what he says. Those that know me are few. Those that abuse me are honored. Therefore, the sage wears rough clothing and holds the jewel in his heart. Very few people can know the Master. It is a very difficult thing to know one. I've lived with one, quite a few actually, and I understand exactly what he means. It is very difficult to know them because they don't think like we think. They don't believe like we believe. And they don't need what we think we need. So it is very, very difficult to know the Master. But there is a Master in you, and it is difficult to know only because we're not simple. Those that abuse the Master are those who are high in society, political, socially oriented, the rich. They have a very hard time knowing because the Master is always teaching less is more, less is more. And that's why few people know them, few people want to know them. They are abused by those who are of the hierarchy of culture and society. But I love here what Lao-tzu says. Therefore the sage wears rough clothing and holds the jewel in his heart. The rough clothing is a metaphor for the outer exterior of him, where he is undesirable, where you would just look at him and think, oh, just another beggar, just another person, no one of any importance. That's the rough clothing. But he holds the jewel in his heart. I love that. It means so much to me. Unassuming, he lives. In a loving way, he lives. Most people would just ignore it and never see the beauty of the jewel in the heart. But that's really what it's all about. When you're in a practice, when you're really living in one, you don't have the personality and the persona of a celebrity. All you are doing is living in the discipline of a simplicity. This simplicity allows you to reveal the heart. Hold your heart within. You may not be able as a person to share your heart with everybody. It just may not be possible. There are those who you can share your heart with, and those are the blessed ones that you live with. Those are the people that know. They understand the nature of what you're trying to achieve within you. For everyone else, well, sometimes it's the rough clothing thing. Most people need that. They want to be important. The person who is working on themselves doesn't care about being important. Self-importance isn't what it's about. Self-esteem is not what it's about. No, it's about what Jesus again taught, to be poor in spirit, to mourn, and then to understand the nature of what it means to love. You know, when you start to really understand the meaning of this life, a great sadness overwhelms you. The sadness isn't because you're bad or wrong or have done anything that most people would consider to be less than. The sadness is realizing how you and I have lived. We've lived predicated on the whole idea of a self-importance that doesn't matter. Doing what we do to be loved rather than to be the love. Lao-tzu is about love, and he is trying to teach his students in the language of love. But like most people, it is misinterpreted. And the more misinterpreted it is, the more difficult, obviously, the message is to hand down to those who might have ears to hear. Hopefully, with everything that has been taught to you in this program, you start to understand the nature of that. To understand the nature of your heart and to be able to listen to the language of the heart. It is about a certain energy. It's about music. It's about being able to move into the flow of an energy that most people simply ignore. We are all subject to love, whether we understand it or not. And love has nothing to do with what I believe in or what I can think. Love has something to do with that which lives within us that for many years has lived dormant, way in the recesses of our intentions. Bring it out. Please forgive me, eh? Namaste. There's so much to the three treasures of the Tao, and I'm sure you didn't get everything that I offered here. So I go into the studio and I make very, very important CDs for you. They have all of the discourses I've offered to you here on TV, but also much more in depth. And I think you'll find them very beautiful and very meaningful. If the Tao is to your heart's content, which it is, I think you'll want to order these right away. Go to my website at aspire.org and order yours today.